The calibration strip on the edge of the wall display lifted by 0.5 millimeter, settled back, then lifted again. Mara then noticed it because nothing in Conference Annex 3 was meant to move unless someone touched it. The air system held a fixed pressure. The wall panels had no draft. Even the paper folder near her left hand stayed flat when she turned a page. She set 2 fingers against the strip. It held firm. Across the table, Ilyan Rook adjusted the angle of the room camera by 3 degrees and checked the feed on his wrist display. He did not ask what she was doing. Mara took her hand away from the strip, closed the folder, and aligned it with the edge of the table. The annex had been prepared for first exchange according to 20 years of procedure and 3 months of revisions. Neutral light, open seating, no barriers visible above the table line. Water set out, untouched. Translation lattice active, listening but not transmitting. Beyond the glass wall, the docking spindle rotated with measured slowness. On the far side of it, the alien delegation's vessel remained fixed in berth 6, a dark, narrow shape with no exterior markings that human optics could read. It had arrived 18 hours early and sent exactly one message. "We prefer quiet." Mara had liked that, not the phrasing, the discipline behind it. She reached for her pen, then stopped before touching it. "Did you log the berth scan delay?" Rook looked down once at his wrist. 3.2 seconds. Again. "Yes." Mara nodded. The paper folder stayed where it was. She opened it without looking down, already knowing the order of the pages. Greeting protocol, trade corridor access, medical exchange, signal standards. Nothing ambitious for a first meeting. Enough to make trust possible without pretending trust already existed. Rook crossed to the glass wall. He stood just off-center so his reflection would not cover the spindle. "Thermal profile still flat," he said. "Too flat." He waited a moment before answering. "Flat enough to be a choice." Mara uncapped the pen and wrote that on the margin of the first page. Flat enough to be a choice. The calibration strip lifted once more. Not much, just enough to catch the light differently. Rook saw her looking. Adhesive failure? Maybe. He walked back to the table, stopped at her shoulder, and pressed the strip with his thumb. It aligned neatly with the display frame. Perfect line. No lift. Then the room speakers gave a soft acknowledgement tone. Not a call request. Not a systems alert. Just confirmation that something on the station had received an input. Rook checked his wrist display. "No local command," he said. Mara left the pen uncapped on the paper. From berth 6, Rook's eyes moved once to the glass wall, then to the dormant translation lattice in the center of the table. "No," he said. From inside the station, he tapped his display again. Nothing this time. Mara looked at the untouched water, the straight edge of the folder, the strip now lying flat against the wall as if it had never moved at all. Then she turned 1 page forward in the briefing packet and found a thin black line across the margin of the paper. Not ink. A printer registration mark. The page beneath it had one too, and the next. Each line sat in exactly the same place, as if the station had started correcting for a drift no one had reported. Rook pulled a chair back from the far wall and set it beside the door. Not hurry, just closer. Mara capped her pen and placed it parallel to the folder. "Delay the meeting by 6 minutes, she said. Rook was already sending it. Outside, berth 6 remained dark and silent. Inside Annex 3, the station answered someone again, with the same soft tone, and neither of them moved until it finished. Rook didn't wait for confirmation on the delay. He watched the transmission leave his wrist display, then checked the internal routing twice more, as if the path itself might change between glances. Mara turned the page back. The thin black line was still there. Same position, same weight. Not printed through the paper, just placed with a precision that felt deliberate but not decorative. She slid the sheet halfway out of the folder, then stopped when the edge caught slightly against the stack beneath it. "Hold," she said quietly. Rook froze mid-step near the door. His hand rested on the back of the chair he had moved earlier. Mara lifted the page again, slower this time. The paper beneath it shifted, but not in the way stacked sheets usually do. There was resistance, then a release like something had settled into place between them. She separated the two sheets. Both carried the same line. Not identical, no, that wasn't right. The second line was offset by a fraction of a millimeter. Not random, not printing drift. Intentional spacing. Rook crossed back to the table. He didn't touch the pages. Sequence. Mara aligned the sheets side by side. If it is, it started before we opened the folder. He glanced once at the printer dock embedded in the far wall. Idle. No cue. Nothing sent to it, he said. Nothing recently, Mara corrected. She stacked the pages again, this time deliberately misaligning the corners. The lines no longer overlapped cleanly. A pattern emerged, not across the text, but in the margins. Thin markers, each placed with the same measured restraint. Rook leaned closer, not enough to cast a shadow. Not for us. No, Mara said. Not originally. The room speaker gave the same soft tone again. Rook checked his display immediately. Internal relay. Same node as before. Which node? He hesitated. Maintenance loop. Mara let that sit for a moment. Annex systems aren't on that loop, she said. They shouldn't be. She closed the folder halfway, leaving the marked pages exposed. The calibration strip on the wall remained still now, perfectly aligned, as if it had never shifted at all. Rook moved to the console near the door and opened a diagnostics pane. He didn't scroll, just watched the data settle. Loop's active, he said, but there's no request tied to it. Something's using it. He didn't answer. Mara tapped the edge of the paper stack once, aligning it again. The lines returned to their near-perfect spacing. Don't isolate it yet, she said. If it's local, it knows the system better than we do. Rook closed the diagnostics pane without argument. Outside, the docking spindle turned. Same speed, same angle, no variation. Inside, the room felt unchanged. Except now the silence had structure. And neither of them spoke until the speaker acknowledged the unseen input again. Soft, precise, and exactly on time. Rook shifted the chair a few centimeters closer to the door, then left it there without sitting. The position gave him a clear line to the corridor display and the annex console at the same time. Mara didn't look up. She slid another sheet from the folder, then another until 4 lay in front of her. Each carried the same thin mark along the margin, but none matched exactly when placed together. She rotated one page 90 degrees. The lines no longer looked like margins. Rook noticed before she said anything. He stepped closer, stopping just short of the table's edge. Not a sequence, he said. Mara adjusted the second page, then the third. The marks began to intersect. Faint, incomplete, but consistent enough to suggest direction rather than position. Not written to be read flat, she said. Rook glanced toward the dormant translation lattice. Still idle. No signal input registered. Then how? Mara didn't answer immediately. She lifted one page, held it just above the others, and shifted it slowly. The lines didn't align, but they responded. Angles changed. Intersections moved. Not fixed. Dependent. Layered, she said at last. Rook exhaled once, quietly. So it needs motion. Or perspective. He reached past her, careful not to touch the paper, and adjusted the overhead light by a small increment. The reflection across the page surface shifted. The lines changed again. Not in position. In visibility. Mara stilled her hands. There it was, faint, almost lost in the paper grain. A second set of markings, thinner than the first, visible only at that angle. Rook leaned slightly to the left. The pattern vanished. He leaned back. It returned. Light-dependent encoding, he said. Mara nodded once. But not passive. The room speaker gave its soft tone again. This time it came half a second earlier than before. Rook checked his display. Interval changed. By how much? 0.4. Mara looked at the pages again. The layered lines, the shifting intersections, the barely visible second pattern under angled light. Timing and alignment, she said. Rook followed her gaze. It's adjusting to something. Or to us. He didn't respond. Instead, he reached for the console and pulled up the Annex's internal clock. It matched station time. No drift. But the maintenance loop node, the one triggering the acknowledgements, ran on a separate timing system. Mara placed the top sheet back onto the stack, aligning it precisely. The faint secondary markings disappeared. She tapped the edge once, straightened it again. The lines returned to their original simple form. Just margins. Nothing more. Close the loop display, she said. Rook did. Silence settled back into the room. Clean. Even. Then the speaker acknowledged the input again, this time exactly on the original interval, as if the deviation had never occurred. Mara capped her pen again, though she hadn't used it. They're not sending us a message, she said. Rook looked at the glass wall, then at the papers. No, he said. They're checking if we can see one. Neither of them moved after that. Outside, Berth 6 remained dark, unchanged, and entirely still. Rook reopened the diagnostics panel, but this time he didn't go straight to the maintenance loop. He brought up the station's light control grid instead, isolating Annex 3. Incremental shifts, he said. No jumps. Mara didn't look at him. Keep it below perceptible. He adjusted the overhead array by fractions. The room didn't seem to change, but the paper did. The faint secondary markings returned, then softened, then sharpened again as the light angle moved through its narrow range. Mara lifted two sheets and held them slightly apart, not touching. The lines responded again, not aligning but settling into a configuration that held for longer than before. Pause there, she said. Rook stopped the adjustment. The speaker remained silent. Mara lowered the pages back onto the table without disturbing their position. It's not reacting to the light itself, she said. It's reacting to the change. Rook nodded once. Derivative, not state. She glanced at the console. Then don't hold it steady. He resumed, slower now. A gradual oscillation, small, controlled, never repeating exactly. The speaker tone returned. Not early, not late, exactly between the previous intervals. Rook watched the timing readout without blinking. It matched the midpoint. Mara slid the top page half a centimeter to the right. The lines shifted again, intersections forming a tighter cluster near the lower margin. Position and change, she said. Rook adjusted the light again, this time introducing a slight delay between steps. The room remained visually unchanged, but the pattern on the paper deepened. More of the faint lines appeared, connecting where there had been gaps. Don't complete it, Mara said. He stopped immediately. The pattern held, incomplete. The speaker did not respond. They waited. Rook counted under his breath, not aloud. When the expected interval passed without the tone, he looked up. It's waiting, he said. Mara nodded. She reached for the pen, uncapped it, and hovered it above the page without touching. If we finish it, we confirm we understand, she said. And if we don't? She set the pen down again, parallel to the folder. It keeps testing. Rook closed the light control grid but left the current settings in place. Outside, the docking spindle continued its rotation. The ship in berth 6 remained unchanged. No lights, no visible seams, no indication of activity. Inside, the pages lay still, holding a pattern that was almost complete. Mara aligned the stack once more, restoring the clean margins. The faint lines vanished. The room speaker stayed silent. Rook moved the chair back to its original position by the wall, aligning its legs with the floor seam. Mara closed the folder. Resume the meeting time, she said. Rook sent the update. Neither of them mentioned the pattern again. The chair legs met the floor seam without sound. Rook checked the alignment once, then left it. Mara rested her hand on the closed folder, not opening it again. The pen lay beside it, capped, its clip parallel to the table's edge. Nothing in the room suggested interruption now. It had the look of something prepared properly, as if the earlier adjustments had never happened. Time? She asked. Rook glanced at his wrist. 2 minutes. She nodded once. The overhead light held steady. No oscillation. No subtle drift. The calibration strip on the wall remained flat, perfectly in line with the display frame. Rook crossed to the glass wall again, stopping at the same off-center position. The docking spindle continued its slow rotation. Berth 6 remained unchanged. External comms still closed, he said. Mara stood, smoothing the front of her sleeve with one hand. The motion was brief, almost habitual. She didn't look at the wall, only at the table, at the folder, the pen, the untouched water. Open the lattice when they request, she said. Rook didn't move. If they don't. Mara considered that for a moment. Then we wait. He nodded. A second passed. Then another. The room speaker gave a tone. Not the same as before. Slightly longer. Still soft, but sustained just enough to separate it from the earlier acknowledgments. Rook checked his display. External source. Mara didn't turn toward the console. From Berth 6. Yes. The translation lattice in the center of the table activated without sound. A faint shimmer, barely visible, settled into place above its surface. No signal followed. Rook waited for the system to populate. Nothing appeared. No waveform. No text. Carrier only, he said. No content. Mara stepped closer to the table but didn't sit. She looked at the lattice, then at the closed folder. Keep it open, she said. Rook left the system as it was. The silence that followed felt different, not structured like before, not timed. It held without pattern, without interruption. Mara reached for the folder, opened it halfway, then stopped. She didn't turn a page. Instead, she adjusted the stack just enough to break its alignment. Not by much. A slight shift, less than a centimeter. The margins no longer formed a perfect line. The lattice shimmered once. Rook's eyes moved from the display to the table. Signal modulation, he said quietly. Mara didn't respond. She nudged the top page again, this time correcting the misalignment. The lattice steadied. No message appeared. Rook watched the system, then the paper, then the system again. They're not sending anything, he said. Mara closed the folder fully. No, she said. They're watching how we hold the room. The lattice remained active, empty. Outside, the ship in Berth 6 did not move. The lattice continued to hum faintly, a soft undercurrent to the stillness. Rook moved toward the door, but he stopped midway, as if unsure whether he should leave the room or stay. His fingers brushed lightly over the console. He wasn't touching anything, just hovering, waiting for something to tell him what to do next. Mara adjusted her position at the table, folding her hands neatly. She glanced at the folder, then back at Rook, but said nothing. The ship in Berth 6 remained unmoving, dark and silent. I've got nothing, Rook said, his voice calm but tight. No deviation, no transmission to the lattice. It's just waiting. Waiting for what? Mara asked. Rook didn't answer immediately. He ran his hand along the edge of the table, as if considering the answer. His wrist display flashed briefly. He didn't acknowledge it. We're not the ones they're testing, he said after a moment. Not the system. Not the process. Us. Mara absorbed the thought, then nodded. She reached for the chair but didn't sit. She looked at the empty lattice again, the faint shimmer still reflecting the light, just a suggestion of presence, like the hum of a long-forgotten machine. If we're the test, Mara said, they've already learned everything they need to. Rook didn't respond. He turned away from the table and stepped to the window. The view was minimal, just a dark reflection of the room, the docking spindle still revolving in the distance. Outside, the ship in Berth 6 remained in its exact position, no closer to docking, no signal moving between them. No movement, no message. But the hum in the room continued, subtle, unbroken. The door to the annex slid open quietly behind them. Neither of them moved. Mara didn't look back. She left the folder exactly where it was, perfectly aligned. The door closed, leaving nothing behind but silence.